So today I'm going to take you on a journey of Sidewalk Detroit and how we kind of started grounding ourselves in our public art practice, and then how that expanded into community engagement and revitalization of Detroit green spaces. I'll share a little bit about my role as the program director. We are a nonprofit arts organization that inspires community members to reclaim their space through deep engagement. Our goal is to create fair and joyful spaces through public art, cultural programming, and collaborative community engagement. We believe that reclaiming and reactivating public space is a radical act of resilience. We work with city planners and community members to shape their neighborhoods, ensuring that their voices are not just heard, but also drive change. We also commission original large-scale permanent artwork like sculptures and murals with a focus on environmental sustainability, and curate experiences that make space for cultural expression, environmental justice, and equitable development. And my team is the ones that really make this happen. So I'm going to give you a little bit of a background on how everyone plays a role in making our mission happen. Ryan Myers-Johnson is our executive director and founder. She started the organization in 2013 with our biannual Sidewalk Festival, which I'll share with you about that in the next couple slides. Josie McQuiston is our director of operations. I'm the program director. Our outdoor strategist is Alexis Boone. She works mostly in our green spaces and in Eliza Howell Park with our infrastructure projects and cultural programming. And Rukia Colvin is our engagement strategist, and they work on all of our community engagement and consulting projects. Our mission is to advance spatial equity and heal spatial trauma through the lens of arts, culture, and deep engagement with residents. We seek to improve livability for residents through the promotion of spatial equity and strong social infrastructure. Our emphasis is on public art, neighborhood placekeeping, and equitable access to urban green space. We facilitate these processes in which residents reclaim their space and envision a joyful and protected and connected future. So I'm going to share with you how our organization is growing, our roots in public art, how we really learned along the way, and how that has shaped our practice. Our deep listening skills around community engagement and how that informs the vision for framework plans for any of our cultural programming, our artwork, and then how we really create together with our community members and with the city that with the city of Detroit and other cities that we work in. I'm going to share with you Sidewalk Festival, which is our flagship program, and how Sidewalk Detroit got started. Eliza Howell Park is a city park in Detroit that is 250 acres. That is, I don't know how to compare that in other metrics, but pretty big. It is the fourth largest park in Detroit. Our community engagement practice, which is one of our funding sources, and our public art practice. So the founding of Sidewalk Detroit is with Sidewalk Festival. This is a vibrant biannual performing arts festival that features a variety of site-specific performances, often transforming unconventional spaces like streets, alleys in front of businesses, gardens, and parks into a beautiful artistic expression of many different forms. The festival emphasizes themes such as environmental justice, spatial equity, and community engagement, and creates a lot of opportunities for artists and the local economy to engage and connect. One of our core values at Sidewalk Detroit is reactivating over rebuilding. When we started this festival in Old Redford, which is a part of Northwest Detroit, we invited business owners, Block Club leaders, the Old Redford Neighborhood Association, and residents, just like, what do you think about having a festival in your neighborhood? So we got feedback from community, and people were like, yeah, that sounds great. It's going to like help drive business to our area. So we formed a community council and a curatorial council that helped shape the vision of the festival, which resided in this neighborhood for 7 years. And after those 7 years, we noticed a lot of big changes. Investors were starting to come to the neighborhood, interested in housing development projects, investing in the businesses, and just, you know, general interest in that area. So we were really identifying, and we were just seeing in real time how a festival like this is helping drive economic impact. We created a space that was, you know, felt inclusive and safe, and neighbors and the business owners, everyone could really see like, this is a festival that I see myself in. I'm on street level with the artists. It's like a really easy way for us to connect with each other. So you can see lots of different types of performances, installation. These are very similar images I can see that as Lorinda was also sharing, of just being out in public spaces. So it was a nice connection. When the pandemic hit, we had to completely shift the way we were approaching this program in particular. We couldn't really gather in large spaces. So we launched a series called Now Future, and inviting artists, emerging and established, to really think about how the pandemic was impacting their lives and their livelihood. And fortunately, we had funding that we needed to provide artists and give artists. So we launched a mini mobile concert series where we had a traveling stage that went to different neighborhoods throughout Detroit, so that people could experience and enjoy music from the comfort of their homes or their front porches. Through the process of engaging with community around public art and performance art, we began learning about Eliza Howell Park. And some of this work was happening simultaneously. Eliza Howell Park, like I said, is a beautiful 250-acre park in also Northwest Detroit, which is where Old Redford is located. And our founder, Ryan Myers Johnson, used to live basically right on the outskirts of the park. There's a neighborhood called Brightmoor. And Ryan was visiting the park on a daily basis and was just like, I have a vision for this park, public art everywhere, beautiful installations. We'll have, you know, performances, and we can do programming in the park. And when she started talking to neighbors about this, people were just like, we don't want any of that right now. Like, great, but we need basic things like benches, lighting, improve the trails, wayfinding signage, really simple, basic amenities for the park. So Ryan said, okay, like, no problem, you know, I'll take a step back. And the city approached Ryan, seeing her success through Sidewalk Festival and the type of attention that Old Redford was getting, and invited Ryan and Sidewalk Detroit to apply for an RFP for a framework plan for Eliza Howell Park. And this was in 2016. So Sidewalk Festival had been going on for a few years, and Sidewalk Detroit was accepted to be part of a team of architects, designers, to develop this framework plan. So we were hired on. This is our first community engagement consulting job. Having never done this before, Ryan got some mentoring, visited a few organizations to really understand like what it takes to become a community engagement consultant, and had a lot of success. So here are just a few images of us leading those community engagement processes out in the city, asking neighbors and residents for feedback on the plan, what are their priorities, really listening to what are the challenges that people are having in the park or even in the neighborhood, What are some of the positives? What do you want to see? All of these kind of visioning exercises. And then as consultants, and I'm sure I know that there's a lot of city planners in here in the room and architects, we listen to that feedback, analyze it, and then present it back to, to those meetings. We had a lot of success and started managing once there was funding for the framework plan, implementing and managing those projects. So this is just images of some of the new trails in Eliza Howell Park, and it went through multiple phases of improving the trails, adding in vernal ponds, signage, and that took, I think that was 2016 to almost 2021. I came on to Sidewalk Detroit in 2020, and I was finishing up managing some of those implementation projects. Here are some more recent images of Eliza Howell Park with some of the new kiosks, those limestone pathways. So we were really able to, once a little bit more infrastructure was built in, we were starting to able to implement all of this cultural programming. Things like Harvest Festival, weekly yoga in the park, performing arts, dance, bringing in horse rides, like really activating the park and making it feel like a warm and welcoming space, a space that was one of the challenges in Eliza Howell Park, that people were a little bit afraid to go there because a lot of trauma and challenging things have been happening at the park, and people are just not feeling generally safe. So by offering these types of consistent programming, there's a new kind of energy and livability that people feel like, okay, I can go to this park because I know there's going to be these things happening and people are there. So it was a lot of listening, really understanding the culture of Brightmoor and the neighborhood and the needs of that community, and then implementing what they're saying and what they're interested in seeing at the park. And through a lot of the infrastructure improvements, we were able to then implement these kind of cultural programs. Then we started our eco artist residency, and this is one of the projects that I started at Sidewalk Detroit. And asking them what types of art they want to see. That started with just natural materials. And we invited an artist named Patrick Doherty. He does not practice anymore. He's in his elder ages, but you may be familiar with his work because he has exhibited internationally. And this project is called A Walk in the Park, and it works just with tree saplings. So these are trees that, you know, if you're familiar with saplings, they're like maybe 6, 7, 13 feet. And we worked with an organization in Detroit called Greening of Detroit to help us with our volunteer base. We worked with over 100 volunteers, and we cut these saplings over the course of, I think it was just about a week of cutting saplings. We went to about 3 different city parks, and we got permission from all the parks and even one state park. And then we hauled those tree saplings back to Eliza Howell Park. You could see there's some just like bushels of these trees, and then we had volunteers stripping the leaves from those trees, and then another section of volunteers was our weavers, and then they're weaving those tree saplings into this installation. And that was a great way to involve community. And this took place in 2021. So we're still in the pandemic. And from this project, I heard a lot of people was just like, thank you so much for hosting something like this. This was able to get me out of the house. It was a really meditative process, and just being in community. And this was a really healing project for a lot of people that were involved. And they would come back. We were there 7 days a week for 3 weeks. This next image is the opening and just a quick video of how we like to kind of activate our spaces with improvisational music and dance.
Good to see you.
Then, here we go. The next project I'm going to talk about is with an artist, Halima Cassels. She is a Detroit-based artist, and this project is focused around water quality and microplastics. So I talked a little bit about our focus on environmental justice. So each of our eco artists in residence have a different focus around climate change and issues that we're facing in Detroit and related to Eliza Howell Park and just current issues that are a day-to-day like life challenge. And with this piece, we had a big river cleanup, Eliza Howell Park. Maybe I could go back a couple slides and show you where the river is. Here. So in this image, this is the Rouge River. And that's a big river. It is a big river in Detroit, and the upper and the lower Rouge are two vastly different ways that the water is treated. And the lower Rouge is extremely polluted, and that is located more in Detroit neighborhoods and the Wayne County, while the upper Rouge is in more affluent neighborhoods and is clean. So we're dealing with an extremely polluted waterway that is, vital to the plant and animal life, and they're suffering. But we've seen some improvements, but it's still pretty rough. So our river cleanup, the challenge for this project was that Halima had to use the trash that we picked out from the river, and it was nasty. It was literally like just filled with years and years of grime. The way that we had to wash it was through bleach, vinegar, soap, and washing it many times throughout. So we had multiple days of just washing, needing it to dry. Thankfully, this took place in the spring, so we had a lot of outdoor space. But Halima was able to envision an archway that leads us to the river. And even before Halima was selected, we had a curatorial council that reviewed a handful of artists, and they selected Halima as the artist of choice. And then Halima had to present a handful of ideas and drawings that then the curatorial council also selected, what they felt like was best for the park. So there's always a level of community involved in a lot of our decision making and visioning, just to make sure that it's reflective of what the residents and the park goers are needing and wanting. With this project, we invited an organization called Ecology Center that focuses on microplastics, and they're also an advocacy organization. So we did several workshops where Ecology Center, we took samples from the water and were able to identify what is in the water. We could see if it's microplastics or just anything in there. And we had youth coming in for these workshops so they could be part of this kind of scientific and creative workshop where they could see the water samples and then also help make elements of this installation. And one of the things we learned from this project was, and I'm curious I'm going to ask your question and for a little bit of engagement is, what do you think we found the most in the river when we were taking out material or cleaning up the trash? And if you want to just put it in the chat or shout it out, or you don't need to shout, but you can just say. I'm seeing water bottles. Yes. Shoes. I think we had some shoes. Plastics, yes. Yeah, so it was mostly plastics. And yeah, there was some clothing, some phones. I don't know if we saw any phones. We did see a lot of glass bottles, and then mostly one of the things that I feel like was just a big takeaway was we have a system, and I'm curious what other, there's a lot of representation from countries all over the world in this room. Is we don't have any systems for recycling plastic and getting money back, getting a deposit back in Michigan, or at least most of the states. But we do have a recycling system for cans, for most cans. So what people are throwing out of their cars, out of into the river, apparently, are plastics. So we did not see a lot of metal cans. So that was the challenge of this project, was Halima had to really think about how to work with these plastics, and cutting them, and just putting them together, and a lot of bottle caps. There's this yellow part is a like an exercise ball, and then this orange is like a construction cone. But a lot of this is, when you get to see it a little bit closer, are bottle caps and just plastic bottles. And you can just think about how these plastics and microplastics are impacting animals, plants, and then humans. Like, eventually this is getting into their they're consumed, those animals are consuming those plastics, and it's kind of depressing when you think about it. But this is a really good way to teach people about, like, why we shouldn't be throwing away plastics, and the impacts of microplastics in our daily lives. Our next focus, and this project was happening simultaneously, is air quality. There's major issues in Detroit around air quality. There are a lot of factories placed throughout the city of Detroit, a lot of car factories, and this one in particular is called Stellantis. And I don't know if anyone has read through the news what Stellantis, or who Stellantis is, but they're a car painting factory, and they emit volatile organic compounds and particulate matter. And just think about, if there's a factory down the block from your home, what that would look like, or what that might smell like, or taste like, or feel like, if those paint particles were raining down on you. And Stellantis says, like, oh, we have filters, we're filtering this out, but they're not doing enough, because community members are being impacted, and have been being impacted since the 80s, as Stellantis has taken over more blocks of the city. So that factory, I think, takes up about 20 blocks. So it's a pretty large area of Detroit that is being impacted by this factory. And there's community members have been fighting for a long time, but to no success. So we invited an artist named Jordan Weber. He's based in New York, but has Midwest roots, to think about a project in this neighborhood. And it talks about air quality. His work is a lot around kind of like like revitalizing spaces and brownfields, and thinking how to transform these into more healthy and kind of like cultural hubs and educational hubs. So this project, we installed an air quality monitor and a light that indicates the air quality of that day. So if kids are walking to school and that light is red, they know that maybe that's not a day that it is okay to play outside. And there's a school right across the street from this installation. And this is a pretty large, this measures almost 30 feet high and 60 feet wide. And we worked with a community neighborhood organization called Canfield Consortium. And they're these two sisters, Kim and Rhonda, right here. And this is their childhood home. That's also right across from the school, and kitty corner to where this park is that they manage. And they manage a few kind of like garden spaces. One's a flower garden, one's an herb garden in the community. So we work with a lot of community organizations to activate these spaces, and think about how to engage residents and the school in this example, to learn about these types of issues. These are the kids that we worked with over the summer, teaching them about air quality in these two photos, we're walking around the neighborhood with these mobile air quality monitors, and we're just testing the air quality. And we worked with another organization called Just Air, which is another advocacy and policy organization in Detroit that is monitoring and analyzing the daily air quality data and then taking it to a more policy level. We also planted trees and had a poetry workshop where kids could kind of think about their relationship to trees. And then, for us, we're talking about the importance of trees and planting trees in this, like around the sculpture. And the trees specifically that we planted were to help mitigate and capture those volatile organic compounds and particulate matter. And then I just want to point to this image down here. This is basically everyone that helped make this project happen. So we're a small 5-person team, but this is a group of almost 40 people. So lots of community organizations, environmental justice organizations, really help make this. We have to work with other people to help make these programs happen. Here's just a little bit of kind of some of our promo materials. We always have lots of panels and artist talks, inviting lots of different diverse thinkers to the table to help us just bring some perspective about the types of work that we're doing and centering environmental justice. The next project that's currently in production is focusing on stormwater. So flooding is a big issue in Detroit, and as we're experiencing more extreme climate catastrophes, we are trying to equip our city and our neighbors with tools to mitigate some of these issues. Stormwater being a big one where city infrastructure is failing. The systems are not able to handle the large amounts of water that we're getting. The storm drains are collapsing and people's homes are flooding. And the Rouge River backs up to many people's homes. So what's happening, particularly in Eliza Howell Park, is the Rouge is overflowing into people's backyards, and it's also attached to a combined sewer system. So it's also sewer that is flowing into people's backyards, and it is a big problem that we are trying to tackle. But it is, it's many people that are involved in this issue. So what can we do? As an arts organization, we can help educate people, and we can show them some ways and examples of how to mitigate some of that through a more creative lens. And so we're working with an artist, Maya Davis, and she's creating essentially a rain catchment system that is capturing the water and flowing it back into bioswales, which are helping to filter that water back into the ground. This is not an installation that everyone can have in their home, but it kind of shows just one example of something like a rain barrel that you could attach to your gutter systems. Or one of the programs that we had over the summer was creating rain catchers, things that you can attach to your gutters, and then that helps filter the water. These are more simple solutions, but this will act as a gathering space. We created a zine, a little art book, to teach people about stormwater and bioswales and just some of the tools that they could do at home. Also, if you're a renter, what can you do if your basement floods and you don't have renter's insurance? Like, what is the landlord responsible for? We were able to interview organizations that are working around stormwater and the neighborhood around what people know or don't know or what they're interested in around stormwater, just trying to get a base understanding of people's kind of experience. And that informed the design of the zine, the kind of Stormwater 101. There's a lot of city infrastructure projects going on right now around um, retention ponds and stormwater infrastructure improvements across the city. So meeting with city planners, we, presented that zine to them, and they're having a lot of issues in their community engagement meetings and a lot of resistance to these projects, just because when you're a city planner and you're talking city planner talk, a lot of people don't know what you're saying. So when you can kind of break it down and simplify the language, it helps. So these are I'm giving you some examples of our more artistic practice and how we are, creating these ideas together. And we have funding from larger foundations in Detroit to make these projects happen, because these are not cheap. Some of every project has a different kind of price point, but we do have funding from foundations to help us with these larger public art projects. And then our community engagement consulting work helps us fund other projects like Sidewalk Festival and our operation costs. So I want to bring us back to Eliza Howell Park. I talked about our engagement starting there in 2016, and now we're in 2026, and we are implementing the Eliza Howell Park Master Plan, which is in some ways a second phase of funding coming to Eliza Howell Park. And one of the things, because we've been doing so much infrastructure improvements and managing of Eliza Howell Park, and we're the park stewards there. When I started working at the organization, there were potholes the size of a car, basically, as you're entering and trying to get through the park, just massive. It was like very challenging and making it not really an accessible place to go. And about a year ago, the city came in and completely repaved the park. And I think that was one of the reasons is our advocacy to improve the roads. And because a lot more people are coming to the park, the installation I showed you that's at the front of the park, the stickwork sculpture, was starting to gain a lot of traction, and just more people are coming to visit. So we were brought on for the second phase of this master plan project, working with the city of Detroit, our landscape architects, our designers, to kind of do another design phase, installing and improving and updating the signage, adding additional trails, opening up. There's a south side of the park that is shut off right now, opening up the south side. And that process was about a year, and we're presenting the final phase in a couple weeks. So you won't be able to come because this is in Detroit, but I just want to show you this is where we're at in Eliza Howell Park, a decade later. And I just want to quickly show, these are some of the smaller infrastructure projects that we manage at the park. I talked about those bioswales with Maya sculpture. These are additional bioswales. We're installing signage, interpretive signage. These are small benches, interactive, cute benches, animal-like benches that the kids that are coming to the community engagement meetings are, selecting. And this is also reflective of, the animals and the animals that have come back to Eliza Howell Park since all of the revitalization and rehabilitation of the park that we've overseen over the last decade. And I will end with the youth. And I think, Florinda, you hit it home with empowering our youth to teach them and help guide our future. So we're starting a youth workforce development program called Trail Keepers. And we are hiring 14 youth and mentoring them around land stewardship and conservation work, and basically training them how to be in the green workforce world. And one of our goals at Eliza Howell Park is the city does not, they basically do the bare minimum of maintenance, and that's mowing. So we have tons of meadows and prairies and vernal ponds and trees and invasive species that need planting and watering and cutting. So we are building out a program that can help sustain all of those efforts that we've put in over the last decade, and we have funding to continue to implement over the next, this program, we have a 2-year funding cycle, but with the Eliza Howell Park master plan, that includes another whole round um, um, of planting cycles of different types of edible forests and bushes and flowers and just general maintenance. So we want to train our youth to be able to sustain us in the park for years to come and just give them opportunities and an understanding of what this work looks like. So we've been meeting with dozens of community partners to help us kind of visualize and build out a curriculum to provide mentorship, workshops, and certification so that when they walk away, they have real life skills that they can then go apply for jobs, for green jobs, whether it's being a landscape, getting into landscape or working at a city park or a state park. One of the certifications we're offering is a master rain gardening, to be a master rain gardener, and you can utilize that skill in many different ways. And that is kind of where we're at right now. So I wanted to take you a little bit on the journey from when we started in 2013 to, as an arts organization, and then really implementing more of our kind of infrastructure and our investment in Eliza Howell Park, and how our consulting practice has taken us to basically, getting us to what, having the youth drive us.